My name's Gavin Grewal. I'm a solicitor at White Dalton Motorcycle Solicitors, and I have with me
Andrew Prendergast, also known as Chef, and also a solicitor.
And today we're doing a video about who's who and what you need to know about the insurance industry. Should we start with what you should do immediately after an accident?
Yeah, that's a good idea. So that'll then tie in with who's who when you start getting phone calls or having to make phone calls. So first things first, if you're unfortunate enough to have a motorcycle accident, there's a few sort of key things you should do if you can. Now this is kind of best case scenario if you're not too injured and you've been taken off in an ambulance. So it doesn't always pan out like this, but broadly speaking, if you've had a collision with a car or truck or whatever, first things first, details. You can never have too many details. So if you can, get the third party's name, address, registration number of their vehicle. I'm stating the obvious, but how often people, myself included, you've been knocked off, you're laying on the floor, you're in a tiz, and all logic goes out the window. First thing you want to do is always stand up. If you've got hurt, you want to get back up because you feel silly.
Also, pick up your motorbike.
Pick up your motorbike. Amount of injured boys and girls who suddenly have He-Man strength and they've picked up their bike with a broken leg never ceases to amaze me. But your adrenaline's pumping, so if you can try and calm down, name of that third-party driver, registration number. Everyone's got a smartphone nowadays. See if you can get some pictures. And then I would always call the police, to be honest. The police might not attend, but at least it's been logged. So you should report it to the police. So should the third party, really, if there's been an accident. And if there's any witnesses. Now, the amount of calls I get every week, whereas I ask, were there any witnesses? And they say, yeah, there's loads of people. I'm like, fantastic. Did you get anyone's details? And they're like, no, but there's definitely loads of people there. Therein lies the problem. People wander off, they get disinterested, they move on with their lives, they forget about things. So if you can, get any witness details as well. So that's in the best case scenario. And I do appreciate if you've been scooped up by an ambulance, you've probably hurt yourself, that might not happen. But try and get as many details as you can.
Yeah, and I think two things arise from that.
Yes.
The first is there's a very famous case out there called Cameron and Hussein. Now, that's famous because the scooter rider involved wasn't able to get the driver who knocked him off his details. So the lawyers originally tried to sue an unnamed or an unidentified driver of a car, which they couldn't do. They then tried to change that to the registered keeper's name. However, in that case, the registered keeper was fictitious. It just didn't exist.
Yes.
So you've got a real problem because in English law, you must be able to identify the driver to bring an action against that wrongdoer. If you don't, so we deal with quite a few hit and run cases, sadly, you've still got a path of recourse. It's against the MIB. They handle something called the Untraced Drivers Agreement.
Motor Insurers Bureau.
Motor Insurers Bureau. However, it's probably fair to say that it is less attractive to bring an action against the MIB than it is an insurance company and a named driver. So if at all possible, get the identity of the other driver. If there's no driver involved, so if we're talking about a gravel case or a pothole case, as much evidence as you possibly can get from the roadside there and then.
We'll cover gravel cases and Motor Insurer Bureau cases,
in another video.
Or MIB cases in another video. But for today, sort of most cases, it's usually going to be a car having a collision with a biker in the stuff we do. So we'll stick with that for today. And so I said, get the third party name, registration number, photos of the scene if you can, details of the witness, report it to the police. And that's really the first step in most cases. Because what's going to happen next is you're going to unfortunately fall down the rabbit hole of phoning brokers, insurers, etc., and all sorts of stuff coming. So that's going to lead on and we're going to talk through who's who now for most cases. And this is where it's only because we're qualified solicitors, it's all we do day in, day out, much the same way as whatever you do in your profession, you do day in, day out, that you know about this. But the amount of people we speak to weekly, daily, who don't know who's who. So first things first.
Well, let's start with the insurer, because that's where it all begins, doesn't it?
Well, you say that, Gav, but let's start with insurance brokers, because people usually in the biking world buy insurance through a broker. So explain what a broker is, if you could.
There's a real difference. When I say insurer, I mean the underwriter. They are the company that insures your bike. So if it gets stolen, if it catches fire, they are the people to pay you the money. A middleman is the brokerage.
Yeah.
And there's some really big brokers out there. I don't think we'll name anyone for the purpose of this video.
Probably not.
No, we don't want to get sued, do we?
Yeah, we don't want to name names.
But a broker is just a middleman. So a lot of big underwriters will not deal directly with you as a biker. They will have a middleman that deals with all the administration, taking phone calls, getting information from you.
So the broker, basically, when you phone them up, they survey the market and find you, say, 3 or 4 products and go, that's what they're going to cost. Which ones you want to buy? That's how you end up with your insurance underwriter. So the broker is the person who's taken your money, found your insurance.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. So the first phone call that people normally make if they have an accident is to the broker, sometimes to the underwriter, but we're talking generally you contact your insurance company. Now, you said down the rabbit hole, because this is where things can go a little bit awry.
Daily phone calls, guys. Genuinely, if you take nothing else from these videos,
this is the important part.
This is the key bit.
What happens, sadly, it shouldn't happen, but it does happen, is your information is then undoubtedly passed on some way, somehow. So your initial phone call to the insurer or the broker then results in people knowing you've had an accident and your phone ringing off the hook. Companies saying they want to come and collect your bike to be assessed. Companies offering you supposedly free things such as hire bikes or hire cars.
So, sometimes it's not even about passing the details on. Some brokers, you literally press, 2, and it takes you straight off to a third-party company.
Yeah.
And here's where some people can get in real trouble.
And I think this is my biggest problem with it. In fact, I think this is all our pet peeve, if I'm being blunt. It's absolutely fine if you want to use a service, but when a service is pushed on you under the illusion that it's free of charge, that's where things go wrong. And that's where lawyers like us have to pick up the pieces, which is why we say it's the most important part of this video.
So just on that point, White Dalton Motorcycle Solicitors are completely independent of any insurer or any broker or any hire company or any storage. We just don't get involved with it because...
Well, we definitely don't now because they're all going to hate us, aren't they, for making this video?
So we're here to tell you the truth. But we don't get involved with any of that because there's often no need for your bike that usually lives in your garage to go off into a storage place somewhere and you be charged a fee. Why can't your bike come back to your garage? We'll talk about hire in a second, but there's a place in the market for hire bikes, of course. But do you need a hire bike, genuinely? If you don't, our advice is don't take one. But we'll get to that in just a second. So back to, you might press the button and end up with someone, another company, or you get phone calls about them. So who are these people? So we got...
Let's start with the bike, actually, because the bike, we all love our bikes. We're all bikers.
It's always sad when you see... I'm always sad when I see a smashed up bike.
Well, especially when it's a bike that we've owned before.
Yeah.
I've got a soft spot for old Suzuki TLs, Kawasaki ZZRs.
GSX 1400s.
Yeah. So
we've too many bikes.
We've all got our love for bikes, and it's always sad to speak to a client that's had their love, pride and joy smashed up. But first things first, where does the bike go? The bike might be collected by a third-party company and taken away to their premises to be assessed. If I just boil that down, why is a company collecting your pride and joy and taking it 100 or 200 miles away to store at their compound and asking you to sign a credit storage agreement at £22 a day?
Now, just on credit storage agreements, I've been doing this a very long time now. It's something I've only really seen come into use a lot in the last maybe 2 or 3 years.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
So if you are insured third-party fire and theft, obviously your insurer is not going to pay to fix your damaged bike. You're insured a third-party risk. In other words, the insurer will pay out if you run me over. Your insurer will pay out me for my injuries if you run me over. If you've insured your bike fully comprehensive, then your insurer will either fix your bike or pay for the pre-accident value of your bike. So that's fully comp insurance. There's a difference between the two. But when it comes to storage, as Gavin points out, you phoned up and suddenly someone's gone, oh, we'll come pick your bike up tomorrow, just sign this. Please read what you're signing. I know I'm stating the obvious, but the credit storage thing in the last 2 or 3 years, they're charging
taken off. Yeah.
Huge amounts of money to move your bike from your free place of storage, the garage, to somewhere miles away.
If I could put it as simply as, why not just get your bike recovered to your home address, into your garage? It might be an estate, you throw a tarpaulin sheet over it, you don't want to look at it, and then get an assessor to come out and give a report on that bike, where it's not incurring storage costs at £22 per day. It can be collected as and when they want to pay out for the bike, and it's not had to travel the length and breadth of the country to be stored. This credit storage really ties in with hire, and I have to say there is a perverse incentive for companies that are storing bikes and hiring bikes to make sure it takes as long as possible.
Why would that be?
Because the costs increase. It's as simple as that.
Longer it's in storage, the higher the costs. The longer you're on a hire bike, the higher the costs. And if you have signed to say you're liable for that credit hire agreement or that credit storage agreement, guess who's paying for it? You are, if you don't get it back from the defendants. And we'll talk about that in a second as well.
Well, I've had some eye-watering claims. So, I mean, I've had a client on a, I don't know, £5,000 Suzuki, and his hire bike has come up to £16,000 in hire charges. It's 3 times the value of the bike that was broken. So, I mean, it's just not reasonable. It's not sensible. This goes on a lot more than we realise. I think we've just sort of hit the tip of the iceberg with the phone calls that we get from bikers, and we're always happy to have free chats with bikers if they've had an accident. It's part of the service that we provide. So going back to who's who, those are the companies that will collect your bike, potentially give you a hire bike. There's lawyers involved as well, because they normally have, I guess the best way to describe it is panel law firms for insurance companies.
Yeah, so make no bones about it. If you've fallen off your bike, you are going to get interest from various people. Some warranted, some not warranted. So you got, as Gavin says, your insurance brokers. You've got third-party companies trying to hire your bikes, store your bikes, and then you've got people wanting to represent you if you've had personal injury. So often people will have an insurance policy that has a bolt on, might pay £10 or £20 for what's called some sort of legal expenses policy. Every policy needs to be looked at, but they're not often worth the paper they're written on.
Well, yeah, I have to say that's probably as high as 90-95%, because when I've had a client come to me and I write to the insurer to say, tells me he's got this legal expenses insurance, can I please have a copy of the terms and conditions, who the underwriter is? There isn't one.
Yeah, and so in essence, you're being funneled, as the poor injured biker, you're being funneled by your insurance broker or insurer not to bring a claim, to let your bike go off to storage, for you to get a hire bike. All the time the costs are going up, and then you might get funneled to use one of their recommended or panel solicitors. And I'm not going to go too much into the legality of referral fees and the like, because for all intents and purposes, they were made illegal
with LASPO in 2012.
10 years ago.
Yeah, so it's actually illegal for there to be a referral system. I mean, we've got to be careful. I can't sit on camera and tell everyone that these companies are acting illegally, because I've got no evidence of that.
No. But what historically used to happen is insurance companies would get paid a referral fee from a solicitor to get the work. Once that became illegal, you found that some insurers had started their own law firms, so you cut out the referral fee, but you're basically still funneling people towards the preferred solicitor of the insurer. So by all means, if you have an accident and you've broken your leg, you can use that solicitor that your insurer is trying to push you towards. And they might do a good job, to be fair. Some of them, I must admit, I've made a living over the years taking over claims from some of those solicitors who haven't done a great job, perhaps. But you can use them if you want. You could use the man down the high street, or a lady down the high street, who a solicitor you know and trust, or you could come to a specialist like us. It's your choice. But that's the important thing, is your choice who you use. So we've covered insurance brokers. We've covered hire people.
Yep.
I think just on hire, we really need to kind of just bury into the detail on that.
Yeah. I mean,
because hire bikes, there's a place for them in the market.
Probably safe for me to say that an injured biker becomes a traded commodity when all of this system plays on. And if you haven't seen the video that Andrew Dalton did with 44 Teeth, we'll put a link to it below, I think.
Yeah.
It was called The Insurance Industry's Dirty Little Secret. But this problem has got worse, not better. And if we just look at hire and really delve into hire. So
there is, without a doubt, there is a space in the market for hire. And I suppose I'll just give you the example of 16-year-old me and 40-something-year-old me. 16-year-old me might have needed a hire bike, because at that time I had a very stylish scooter, a moped, which I looked amazing on, clearly. So imagine this fat lad riding around on a moped. But anyway, so at that time I was washing up in a kitchen somewhere, so I didn't have a lot of money, and I only had a moped to get to work on. So if I'd have been knocked off at 16, then you could follow why I might need a hire bike. I couldn't get to work, washing up in a restaurant, and I didn't have any money to pay for a taxi, etc., etc. So I might need a hire bike. But if we then compare that with 40-something-year-old me, and I got knocked off my bike tomorrow, you might need to ask yourself the same question. So if you needed to get to work tomorrow, if you're knocked off your bike, have you got a car? If the answer is yes, you don't need a hire bike. If you've broken your leg and you can't ride a hire bike, you don't need a hire bike. And we've seen that before where people phone up and a shiny new hire bike's turned up on the drive.
Yeah, I think the worst call that I've had was a chap with 2 broken wrists. So I don't know how he's holding the phone, but he said to me they've just delivered a hire bike. And
some of these are over £200 a day for a hire bike to look shiny on your driver in your garage. Madness. Should never have one. So if you're injured, you don't need one. Being realistic, it might be a chore, but if you could get public transport to get to work. So if you're in London, could you get the train or could you get a taxi? And it's going to cost you less than £100, £200 a day. What reasonable person is going to spend £100, £200 a day on a hire bike? And there's the problem. A judge is going to get to the end of it and say, in my case, 40-something-year-old Andrew has got a vehicle, has actually got another motorbike, who could probably afford to pay for a taxi or public transport for a month or two. Therefore, if I hire a bike at several £1,000s, even if I win my case,
it's not reasonable.
It's unreasonable and I'm not getting it back. So be very, very careful for hire bikes. Gav's mentioned a story. I've got one, lovely chap, but he didn't speak to me until a year after the accident. He had a £1,500 Suzuki Bandit. Nothing wrong with Suzuki Bandits. I had one myself, but they're not worth huge sums of money. £1,500, speaks to me a year after the accident. There's £26,000 of hire and storage charge on that bike. He's faced with this huge problem of trying to get the money back, or we're trying to fight with the bike hire company or the storage company trying to get them to write some of it off. But at the end of the day, he signed that bit of paper saying I'm liable to pay for this if I don't get it back. And if he never signed to say he was liable to pay for it, then he couldn't put forward those costs to the other side. But we hear, and I need to say it's just stories because I haven't been in the situation, but I hear stories every week where people are going, they told me I wouldn't have to pay anything, or they told me they wouldn't have to pay anything. But there you are, you've signed the contract. And we've had cases where those hire people, storage people have come and got the money off our clients.
Yeah, and I suppose this is the bit they don't tell you. This is the bit you don't see when at the beginning of the process, it's all have a shiny bike, have this, have that, please sign here, sir. I have got a nice story though. One of the cases I dealt with last year, the client got a hire bike. He got it delivered to his home address. And when we came to the end of the case and they waved the piece of paper saying your client signed this, he turned around and said, that's not my signature. So I immediately thought this is some fraud. And as we delved into the issues, it turns out he was at work the day they delivered the bike.
Yeah.
So his girlfriend signed for it. But she wasn't a party to the proceedings, so the whole thing just went away. So there's a nice little story there. They seem to be so desperate to get people to sign, they're not even checking who's signing the delivery note for the...
But I want to stress, it's a lovely story, but it's very rare.
Oh, it's the one. It's the one. I have to share the one with you because it was heartwarming for my client that really didn't have to pay this big invoice. But I suppose there's the bit you don't see, and that's a story that we're trying to give you as the biker who might have this problem that little bit of information to help you navigate the pitfalls of having a bad situation, i.e. a bike accident, made worse.
Yeah, we're trying to plant the seeds. You might not have all the answers, but basically have this in your head. If you've had an accident, you could call us first. We speak to bikers every week who've been involved in accidents. We do that free of charge.
Well, absolutely. Yeah, we do.
Quite a lot of our work is just those initial sort of half an hour calls. Even if we can't take it on further, we'll still talk to people, still give them some advice. So speak to us first, won't cost you anything. Then when you do speak to your insurer or your broker, just be aware of who's who. Your broker organised your insurance. Your insurer, if you're fully comp, will pay out for your bike, pay out for any recovery charges or whatever if the police have had to scoop your bike up. So you've insured fully comprehensive. If you're insured third party only or third party fire and theft, if you've smashed your bike up, they're probably not going to help you very much at all. And then under that, insurers are involved, obviously, and then be very, very wary of anyone your insurer or broker's trying to funnel you off towards. So hire bike people, storage people, and panel solicitors, etc.
Yeah, completely agree.
Okay.
Completely agree. As ever, if you could put your comments below, we do read them. And if there's any horror stories below, please let us know. We will look at it. If you need to get in touch, give us a call in the office. Otherwise, thanks for tuning in. If you could like this video, please do subscribe. And we'll see you on the next video in the Truth About series.